The Goonies is a 1985 American adventure Euro-comedy film directed by Richard Donner. The screenplay was written by Chris Columbus from a story by executive producer Steven Spielberg. The film's premise features a band of preteens who live in the Goon Docks neighborhood of Astoria, Oregon, attempting to save their homes from demolition, and in doing so, discover an old Spanish map that leads them on an adventure to unearth the long-lost fortune of One-Eyed Willie, a legendary 17th-century pirate. Plot: The Goonies, a group of 4 friends which include Mikey, the good-natured but asthmatic leader; Mouth, the wisecracking talkative one; Data, the clever inventor; and Chunk, the group's clumsy, heavy-set dreamer and teller of tall tales. Living in the Goon Docks neighborhood of Astoria, Oregon, they face foreclosure on their families' homes from the expanding Astoria Country Club. On their last weekend together, their morale sinks particularly low because Mikey's older brother Brand failed his driver's license exam, thwarting their plans to cruise the coast in style. While rummaging through the Walsh's attic, they find an old newspaper clipping, a Spanish map, and an artifact relating to a rumor of a lost pirate treasure somewhere in the area. Hearing the call of adventure, Mikey tries to persuade his friends to join him in search of the treasure hoarded by a pirate named One-Eyed Willie. Initially reluctant, the group eventually decides to evade the authority of Brand, and escape for one last Goonie adventure. They head down the coast and stumble upon a derelict seaside restaurant that seems to match coordinates set by the map and an old doubloon. They are unaware that the Fratellis, a family of fugitives, are using the restaurant as their hideout. After first encountering the family, the Goonies come back after the Fratellis have left and discover their criminal intents. They send Chunk to get help. However, the Fratellis return before they can leave, forcing the Goonies to use a cavern underneath the restaurant to escape, while being joined by Brand and neighborhood girls Andy and Stephanie. The Fratellis capture Chunk and interrogate him, learning nothing until a colony of bats burst out of the cavern beneath the restaurant. Chunk is placed in the same room with the forsaken and deformed Fratelli brother, Sloth, while the rest of the Fratellis enter the cavern and follow the Goonies' trail. As the Goonies traverse the cavern, Mikey discovers that it matches up with the map and convinces the rest of the group to continue to follow it to find the treasure. They overcome many deadly traps set by One-Eyed Willie, and eventually arrive at a large underground cavern and a lagoon where Willie's ship, the Inferno, lies waiting. While others begin to fill their pockets with the riches on the ship, Mikey locates Willie's remains, and reverently acknowledges him as the first Goonie, leaving part of the treasure with him as a mark of respect. However, as the Goonies exit the hold, they are cornered by the Fratellis, who take the kids' treasure and force them to walk the plank. The Goonies are saved by the timely arrival of Chunk and Sloth, now close friends, who help the rest of the group to shore. With the children no longer a threat, the Fratellis ransack the rest of the ship, including the share of the treasure Mikey left for Willie. This sets off a final booby trap, causing the cave to begin collapsing. The Goonies flee through a hole in the cave, finding themselves on a beach. 2 passing policemen spot them and call in for help. The Goonies are soon reunited with their families while the Fratellis are taken into custody and Chunk offers to take Sloth into his home. As the Astoria Country Club calls upon Mikey's father to sign over the final deed to his property, Rosalita, the Walsh's maid, discovers that Mikey's marble bag contains a large handful of precious jewels taken from the ship. Mikey's father quickly estimates that their value is more than enough to save the Goon Docks. As the families rejoice, they spot the unmanned Inferno, now free of the cave, drifting away. Cast: The Goonies, Sean Astin as Michael Mikey Walsh, Corey Feldman as Clark Mouth Devereaux, Jonathan K. Kwan as Richard Data Wang, Josh Brolin as Brandon Brand Walsh, Jeff Cohen as Lawrence Chunk Cohen, Kerry Green as Andrea Andy Carmichael, Martha Plimpton as Stephanie Steph Steinbrenner, John Matusark as Lotney Sloth Fratelli, The Fratellis, Anne Ramsey as Mama Fratelli, Joe Pantoliano as Francis Fratelli, Robert Davey as Jake Fratelli, others, Mary Ellen Trainor as Irene Walsh, Keith Walker as Irving Walsh, Lou Pontiveros as Rosalita, Steve Anton as Troy Perkins, Curtis Erfanson as Mr. Perkins, Paul Tuopi as the Sheriff. Notes: director Richard Donner makes a cameo appearance as a deputy. Production. Principal photography on The Goonies began on October 22, 1984 and lasted 5 months. There was an additional 6 weeks of ADR recording. The shooting script was lengthy, over 120 pages, and several sequences were eventually cut from the final theatrical version. During the film's denouement, mention is made of an octopus which seems like an exaggeration of the actual events but actually refers to a scene that was excised from the final cut. In the making of The Goonies, director Richard Donner notes the difficulties and pleasures of working with so many child actors. Donner praises them for their energy and excitement, but says that they were a handful when brought together. The documentary frequently shows him coaching the young actors and reveals some of the techniques he used to get realistic performances. One of these tricks involved One-Eyed Willie's ship, which was actually an impressive full-sized mock-up of a pirate ship created under the direction of production designer J. Michael River. Donner restricted the child actors from seeing the ship until they filmed the scene wherein it is revealed to their characters. The characters' first glimpse of the ship was thus basically also the actors' first view of it, bringing about a more realistic performance. However, Corey Feldman admits to having seen it beforehand with another co-star he does not name, and that particular scene in the movie is actually the second shot, as the cast was so overwhelmed at first sight that the scene had to be reshot. It was later noted that the entire set was scrapped after shooting because they could not find anyone who wanted it. In his book There and Back Again, Sean Astin claims that Richard Donner and Steven Spielberg were like co-directors on the film as he compares and contrasts their styles when directing scenes. Some of the on-location filming was done in Astoria, Oregon. The interior and exterior of the old Clatsop County Jail features as the holding place of Jake Fratelli at the start of the film. The museum where Mikey's father works is, in reality, the Captain George Flavel House Museum. The Walsh family home is a real home at 368 38th Street. The scenes along the coast were filmed in Oregon, but they were a considerable distance from Astoria. The Goonies bicycle to Wacola State Park and then find the starting location of the map using Haystack Rock as a guide. Underground scenes were filmed at Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California, including the cavernous set where the Goonies find One-Eyed Willie's ship, which was in Stage 16, one of the largest sound stages in America. Reception. Film critics were generally favorable toward The Goonies. Review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reports that 67% of critics have given the film a positive review, based on 41 reviews, with an average rating of 6/10, and the critical consensus, an energetic, sometimes noisy mix of Spielbergian sentiment and funhouse tricks that will appeal to kids and nostalgic adults alike. At Metacritic, which assigns a normalized rating out of 100 to reviews from film critics, it has a rating score of 60, indicating mixed or average reviews. Several reviewers noted that the film appeared to be enjoyable for children and teens, but not so much for adults. The Goonies grossed $9 million in its opening weekend in the U.S., second on the charts behind Rambo, First Blood Part 2. It grossed over $61 million that year, placing it among the top 10 highest-grossing films of 1985. Ramsey won a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress in a Film for her role. At the 7th Youth in Film Awards, Astin's portrayal of Mikey won the award for Best Starring Performance by a Young Actor in a Motion Picture. Cohen, Feldman, and Plimpton were also nominated for awards for their performances in The Goonies. The film itself was nominated for Best Adventure Motion Picture. The movie has also garnered a cult following over the years. Scottish actor James McAvoy has repeatedly cited in interviews that The Goonies is his favourite film of all time. Home video, VHS and Laserdisc. The Goonies was first released on VHS and Betamax video in the United States in March 1986, and the Laserdisc and CED versions also debuted that year. Warner Home Video released a theatrical widescreen Laserdisc on January 29, 1992. DVD, Warner Home Video released The Goonies in widescreen on Region 1 DVD on August 21, 2001. The DVD featured several notable extras, including commentary by actors Kay Kwan, Feldman, Aston, Green, Plimpton, Cohen, Brolin, and director Dunmer. This option frequently switches back and showed the actors and Dunmer gathered together as they are watching the film while recording the commentary. Midway through the film, Sean Astin had to leave, much to the puzzlement of his co-stars, and without ever getting to say a personal message to Cyndi Lauper that he intended to. He left a Samwise Gamgee action figure in his place, however. In an interview with IGN.com, Astin explained that the recording session started late, which resulted in him having to leave early to honor a prior commitment to his friend, Joe Pantoliano. A 7-minute behind-the-scenes documentary called The Making of the Goonies. The 12-minute, two-part The Goonies Are Good Enough music video by Cyndi Lauper. The video is notable in its casting of some 80s wrestlers, like Andrew Copyright the Giant and Captain Lou Albano. The video was directed by Richard Dunmer. Deleted scenes, a scene where Data tries out his gadgets, including the pinchers of peril, and spy eyes, outside the Fratelli hideout. The boys then realize the map can be folded like a MAD magazine. The octopus attack that Data describes to a reporter at the end of the film. The convenience store scene. The convenience store scene, however, cuts about 15 seconds short, not showing Mouth retrieving the map from Bran's pocket and the boys fleeing the store with Bran chasing. A scene with Sloth and Chunk, where Chunk talks about his friend Joey who only goes out to play at night. The theatrical trailer. Blu-ray, Warner Home Video released The Goonies on Blu-ray disc in October 2008 in Europe and November 2010 in North America. The video is in 1080p high-definition VC1 and accompanied by a Dolby True HD soundtrack. Extras mirrored that of the DVD release, commentary by director Richard Dunmer, The Making of the Goonies featurette, deleted scenes, Cyndi Lauper's two The Goonies Are Good Enough music videos, soundtrack remastered in Dolby True HD 5.1. The special features are presented in 480i/576i standard definition. Video games. Datasoft produced a Goonies video game for Commodore 64, Atari 8-bit Family and Apple II in 1985, which was later ported to the ZX Spectrum and Amstrad CPC by US Gold. This game featured 8 screens in which a player had to use 2 members of the Goonies group to solve puzzles and reach an exit to advance to the next stage. The screens were largely inspired by actual sets and puzzles seen in the film. A reference to the aforementioned octopus scene is included, as the 7th level. In 1986, Konami created 2 versions of the Goonies for the MSX in Japan and Europe, and Family Computer in Japan. The Goonies 2 was also released on the Famicom. The Goonies 2 was released in North America, Europe and Australia, although the original was one of the NES games released as part of the Nintendo vs. System arcade machine in the 1980s. The Goonies 2 had little to do with the film, but achieved a following for its inventive gameplay. In it the Fratellis have managed to kidnap all of the Goonies and hide them in hidden cages across a terrain of caverns, mazes and abandoned buildings. As Mikey, the player must rescue them all and ultimately free a mermaid named Annie. In February 2007, Daimler Chrysler's Jeep division sponsored the Goonies, Return to Astoria, a Flash-based game, developed by Fuel Industries. The player's goal is to collect map pieces and doubloons, and then race the Fratellis to One-Eyed Willie's treasure. Soundtrack and score album. The Goonies, original motion picture soundtrack featured music by Cyndi Lauper, REO Speedwagon, The Bangles, and others. The cast members appeared alongside professional wrestlers Rowdy Roddy Piper and Captain Lou Albano in the 12-minute The Goonies Are Good Enough music video. Steven Spielberg makes a cameo appearance. Lauper also has a cameo in the film, performing the song on TV, although the song was not completed until after filming. Dave Grusine's score was unavailable for 25 years. The main theme, Fratelli Chase, has been used in numerous trailers, and was re-recorded by Grusine and the London Symphony Orchestra for the album Cinemagic. The score makes liberal use of the Max Steiner-composed theme from Adventures of Don Juan. Soundtrack label Varese Sarabande released the score in March 2010 in a limited edition of 5,000 copies. Proposed sequels and adaptations. The possibility of a film sequel has been confirmed and denied many times in recent years by the original cast and crew. Donner said that he had a story he liked and Spielberg behind him, but in 2004 several of the actors from the original revealed that Warner Brothers, the film's owner, had shown no interest in a sequel. Sean Astin told MTV in October 2007 that Goonies 2 is an absolute certainty. The writing's on the wall when they're releasing the DVD in such numbers. Donner has expressed doubt that the sequel will ever happen, as many of the actors had not shown interest in returning for a sequel. Corey Feldman stated in his November 25, 2008 blog post, "No. There is no Goonies 2. I'm sorry but it's just not gonna happen. Course now that I've said that, they'll do it." However, on the July 2010 release of the making of a cult classic, The Unauthorized Story of the Goonies DVD, Richard Donner states a sequel to The Goonies is a definite thing, and will involve as much of the old cast as possible. "It will happen," says Donner. "We've been trying for a number of years." On April 5, 2014, Richard Donner revealed a sequel is in the works, and he hopes to bring back the entire cast. Rumors of adaptations and sequels in other media took off in 2007, including a comic book miniseries, an animated television series, and a musical adaptation of the film. Corey Feldman said he was asked to reprise the role of Mouth in a cartoon series that would feature the original Goonies characters as adults and focus on the adventures of a new set of kids. Apparently this project was briefly in the works for Cartoon Network before being shelved. Entertainment Weekly reported in March 2007 on a potential musical adaptation of the film. "Steven and I have discussed it, and it's something that I'm fairly passionate about right now," Donner says. Variety reported in October 2008 that Donner had met with Broadway entertainment attorney John Brilio, and is confident things are moving in the right direction. As of May 2011, the musical was still in the beginning stages, but Donner was hopeful that an irreverent script would be completed by October. See also, Film Portal, 1980s Portal, References, Notes. External links, The Goonies at the Internet Movie Database, The Goonies at AllMovie, The Goonies at Box Office Mojo.